Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on kind of where you are in the world. My name is Nakia Melecio, and I am looking forward to sharing with you this morning. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about entrepreneurship and innovation, and going to talk a little bit about my role here at Georgia Tech, here in Georgia Tech inside Venture Lab, where we focus on working with researchers, faculty, and entrepreneurship and helping them to be able to commercialize their technology. For bandwidth's sake, I will make sure that I turn my camera off so that you can see my presentation so that there is any uninterruption as it relates to my presentation. While it's uploading right now, just give you just a little bit of background of just who I am. So I work at Georgia Tech. I wear multiple hats here at Georgia Tech. Everything from senior deep tech startup catalyst to senior research faculty to principal inside of Georgia Tech's Venture Lab. So with that, I just want to make sure that as we move through this presentation, it'll take about maybe about 35 minutes, 40 minutes or so. Give you the opportunity to make sure that you're able to see my presentation. And I look forward to sharing this. I'm very passionate about entrepreneurship, very passionate about the things that I do, and just want to give you perspective, right? Because I feel like it is my responsibility and my duty to share the gifts and the talents and the opportunities that I have, not just with the folks here at Georgia Tech or here in the US, but globally. So I look forward to the opportunity to really talk to you about what we're doing. I think entrepreneurship and innovation must be inclusive. And when I say inclusive in innovation, it's such an important thing. I like to start out with quotes, and this is kind of a quote that I live by with working with students and working with faculty. And every time I work in this entrepreneurship space, I truly believe innovation provokes people's current reality, interrogates their existing systems and processes, and pushes innovation beyond its limits. And hopefully today I will set a little bit of the stage and a little bit of context for you around what is entrepreneurship and why is it important? And specifically, why is it important for you all as students and faculty and all of you that may be in the audience today? Entrepreneurship is really that thing that really levels the playing field, creates wealth, creates opportunities, creates new industries, creates new ecosystems. It's the opportunity that we really are at that precipice here right now, where we're needing new innovations and new technologies more than ever before. And it's innovators such as yourself that we call upon and to help spark that new innovation and new technology revolution as we're looking forward into that. So hopefully today that you're able to glean something and walk away from this talk today and just hear a little bit from my experience, and just hopefully that I plant enough of a seed and enough of a nugget that helps to push you beyond your individual limits. And the reason we need to is because the world needs scientists more than ever. When we look at just the endless climate change, energy issues, biotechnologies, biodiversity, space, all the things that we know literally that drive our economy or drive our globe or drive GDP. It's important that education and entrepreneurship, that they clash together, that we find new ways to create new meaningful opportunities for you, not only for yourself, but creating new opportunities and new economies that are sustainable, that are eligible for you and for those that you're trying to create new jobs for. When I think of just some of the most poignant things that we really need innovation in, and energy is one of those things that I think is really at the forefront of a lot of people's mind, whether we're here in whether you're here in Africa or whether you're here in the US. And the reason being is because we're consuming energy at such an enormous amount of rate. In order for us to have this new creative outlet to be able to drive innovation, energy is the cornerstone of that. I love this particular quote when we're talking about just innovation. It says, as new technologies is developed, it will shift the geopolitics of energy. It will change relationships, by Jim Watson, the director of UK Energy Research Center. We're literally at a place right now that order for us to continue to innovate into the future, energy is that place. But we won't just talk about energy. We'll talk about a couple of things. And I'm going to kind of segue into just talking a little bit about what I do at my career here at Georgia Tech, or some of the things that I do at Georgia Tech. But I just want to set a little bit of context before we actually jump into it and jump into entrepreneurship and jump into some of the things that I actually do. And speaking of energy from this perspective, I thought this was a very interesting slide, and I just felt like that I wanted to share, just in context of just really looking at just not just the US, but look across the globe as a whole. And looking at access to electricity and GDP per capita, this is by 2019 data, but it's not far off from where it is right now. When we look at the amount of energy that needs to be created and the amount of energy that's being consumed, we're really at a place where we do need innovators and scientists and researchers more than ever before. And why is that? Because we're creating new novel solutions and new novel technologies. And in order to level the playing field across the globe, we must make sure that we have innovators that are equipped with the resources and everything that they need in order to be a success. When we're talking about building new innovations, innovation is around all of us, whether it's in our schools, whether it's in our universities, or whether it's in our neighborhoods, or where we're finding up with new novel solutions to solve even our most simplest problems, even within our homes. Hopefully today that you will leave with this thought that you play a part in this thing called innovation, and more importantly, an inclusive part in this thing called innovation. But it starts with this, right? It starts with understanding and having an idea. I love what Thomas Edison said. A good inventor is a better need finder. I find out what the world needs, and then I go ahead and invent it. I'm giving you the permission to be a good needs finder. I'm giving you the permission today to be a good innovator, to be a good student, to be a good faculty member. Charge out into the world today to see how can we disrupt the status quo? How do we be a good needs finder? How do we create inclusive innovation in such a way that we're challenging the status quo? Go ahead and be an inventor. Now, I will say this. Now, everyone assumes that you have to be an engineer or some large scale scientist to be a disruptor. Not true. I would encourage you to be that if that is the pathway into your life. But innovation is something that I believe that all of you can be and do and can contribute to. When we look at the large scale again of just all the things that we're faced with from an academic standpoint or innovation standpoint, from climate control to biodiversity to food scarcity to energy to solar to biotech to life science, we're all challenged with these technologies in order to make sure that our globe is sustainable as we continue to go forward. Education, I believe, is the key, alongside with entrepreneurship, is the pathway that helps creates these new economies. And hopefully all of you will understand the importance of that as you charge your future and map out what is the best course of action for you as you move forward into that. I get the opportunity to do that here at Georgia Tech Venture Lab, where I work as one of the principals inside of Georgia Tech Venture Lab. And what we do here at Venture Lab is solely some of the things that I'm talking about. We work closely with our faculty, we work closely with our students, our PhD, our postdocs, our graduate students that have new innovations and new hopes with the desires to create new novel solutions that will disrupt the world and disrupt the status quo. It's a wonderful job, a wonderful place, and an awesome opportunity that I get every single day to work with some of our nation's best, brightest scientists and students that are looking to make our world a better place. Venture Lab is focused on commercialization. It sits within the Office of Commercialization here at Georgia Institute of Technology. We have a very rich history of pulling out of our labs some novel technologies, whether it's new therapeutics, new drug discoveries, new vaccines, whether it's new novel solutions on how to get someone into space, rockets, you name it, we work on it, right? We have some of the nation's best students that are focused on a couple of things to help our company, our economy be that much more better. When we look when we look in terms of what we do at Venture Lab, this is kind of a cycle of what we do, right? We kind of start out with working with students or faculty that start out with an idea, start out with the research. And we walk them through series of processes to really help them to understand what the ideal is, to better refine that, to generate new IP and patents, and hopefully that they will build something that the world will want to use. Or they may build a startup, or someone will actually begin the process of licensing the technology. It's not as easy as I'm making it seem. It is certainly an arduous process when we're talking about commercializing any technologies, especially those that plan to work inside of a university or plan to do some form of research. It's important that you get connected with a university or work inside of a university that has a strong entrepreneurial ecosystem. Because I truly believe entrepreneurship and research are truly the two cornerstones that must merge, must collide in order for us to be a success going forward. So, as you as students, as you continue to press forward and think about what is the things that we want to create and the things that we want to disrupt in this life, it starts out with that education. It starts out with how do I take what I'm learning in the classroom and how do I take that and find a way to solve world's problems with that? Or whether you're being an entrepreneurship, whether you're working inside of a company. I think all of these skills are very useful. So here at Venture Lab, I do get the opportunity to work not just with our faculty and scientists. I get an opportunity to work across the country as well with other universities and other faculties and other students through the National Science Foundation, doing a lot of the same things, working with helping to spin out technologies out of a university, helping them to understand how to create minimal viable products, develop well defined, characterized go to market strategies, along with helping them to understand and develop and create new IPs to ultimately create new economies, to create new jobs, to create new opportunities. It is a unique opportunity that I have the privilege of working at Georgia Tech and working inside of our Georgia Tech Venture Lab. If you ever get an opportunity to come to the US or get an opportunity to come to Georgia Tech, would love for you to get the opportunity to see what we do and how we do inside of Georgia Tech, inside of Georgia Tech's Venture Lab. So enough about that. I want to switch again back to talking about entrepreneurship. And we're going to focus on two things today. We're going to focus on what is entrepreneurship, and we're going to talk about innovation. And we're going to talk a little bit about where do you sit inside of that. And hopefully that you will walk away again with a new, renewed understanding, a new understanding of how to be inclusive in innovation and how to contribute to this global economy from an entrepreneurship and from an innovation perspective. But let's first start, what is entrepreneurship, right? And when we think what is entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship has all these multiple different definitions as to what is entrepreneurship. But I want to run through three basic things that what I think entrepreneurship is from my perspective. Now, everyone has their own opinion about what they believe entrepreneurship is or what they believe entrepreneurship is not. But I want to talk about what I believe entrepreneurship is. Entrepreneurship has, in my opinion, falls into these three basic categories. And I'll explain what I mean by each of these three specific categories because it will set the context and the tone as we continue to move through the presentation. One is visualizing the systems that currently exist and seeing where the flaws and the challenges are. And then activating a new way of thinking, a new way of innovation to solve those problems within the current systems that you see, that you visually see, and creating solutions that challenge and disrupt those current systems. Humanizing the system, understanding not just the technology that's created, but understanding how does humans interact in between and inside those systems. Where do they need to be upgraded or upskilled or reskilled to understand the profound impact that technology is having on their society or having on their own individual sphere? Humanizing the system allows you to understand, one, how do you create and design something that uniquely aligns with the human and understand from their perspective. And then finally, being able to redesign the system after you visualize it and humanize it to create new meaningful technologies, to create new meaningful outcomes that serves the entrepreneur, serves the community, serves the ecosystem, and brings new technology to the forefront. So when we talk about entrepreneurship, from my perspective, I see it as visualizing the system, humanizing the system, and then redesigning the system. This entrepreneurship allows you the understanding and the capacity to build new technologies, to build new tools, to disrupt the status quo. But there are some fundamental questions that I would like all of you to ask, not here now, but something to think about. The fundamental question is why researchers should have an entrepreneurial mindset to improve innovation and commercialization. And second question is why should researchers use human-centered design in the research perspective? I'm a huge design thinking, human centered design person. I think it is the foundation about building and launching anything that's worth bringing to market. So it's about challenging not just you or just what you're building or disrupting, but challenging your mindset as well too. So when we think of understanding from a human-centered design, there's three basic elements or principles as it relates to this. And I think all of you should employ this, whether it's in an academic setting or whether it's in an entrepreneurship setting. One is empathy. Empathy is such an important key part when we're talking about human-centered design and building out anything. We need to genuinely care about the people we design for, creativity, in understanding where they are, and then having the creativity, we need to find creative ways to solve users' problems. Not just give a temporary solution, but solve problems in a new way. And then business needs. We need to make our products commercially successful. How do we do that? By finding unique processes and finding unique opportunities and unique business models. That means maybe equipping yourself and understanding a little bit of in depth, a little bit deeper about what is entrepreneurship. How do you successfully create and build and do things from an entrepreneurship standpoint? But it starts with three fundamental processes again, thinking about what I talked about, visualizing the system, humanizing the system, and redesigning the system. It starts with one, the process. Identify, invent, and implement. When you identify the problem, you're able to invent the solution and then ultimately implement. I think innovation is a discipline. I think that all of you can learn what innovation is. I think all of you can understand what innovation and what entrepreneurship is, and how do you actually go about the process and moving forward and being able to do that. So, when we think about it from this context, this is kind of where we are in life, in society right now. Science fiction has become science fact. And science fiction has become science fact, and entrepreneurship and research are at the intersection of each other. And we're needing scientists and researchers more than ever, and students more than ever, to understand the pathways of entrepreneurship to be able to create new novel solutions. It's not easy when we're talking about taking technologies and moving it from a lab, from foundational research, all the way to where it's national and societal commercial impact. That's a process. That's a process that requires a high level of understanding of an entrepreneur, an entrepreneurship mindset, and how do we move forward and how do we go about the things and creating and building new novel solutions. Because when we're talking about working with public private entities, they're looking for new ways to fund and support new ideas. And how do we bring it to market? And why is that important? Why it's important is because we are at the intersection of entrepreneurship and research. I personally fundamentally believe that. This is something that I spend a lot of time talking about. This is something that I spend a lot of time focusing on. And the reason I spend a lot of time talking about and focus on, because it is absolutely important that we understand this fundamental thing. When we talk about the age of AI and ML and autonomy and cyber and energy and human systems and space, it requires an entrepreneurship mindset alongside research to make sure that we're building some fundamentally amazing tools, amazing research. But in that, it requires for you to learn a new set of skills, a new set of methodologies to understanding when we're talking about creating and building tools and technologies. One, again, designing thinking and human centered design. Understanding uniquely and empathizing with the jobs to be done, the person you're creating the technology for, the ecosystem, the country that you're working to solve the technology. Understanding a lean startup approach to how you learn, build, and measure, and an agile method of how do you adapt and learn and react and make quick decisions to make sure that you're building the right thing, having an entrepreneurship mindset. But yet again, keeping in mind that entrepreneurship and innovation must be inclusive. It must be an inclusive thing, and inclusion in innovation is such an important task. And the reason why it's such an important task and why entrepreneurship is so important, when we look at statistically about the amount of STEM workers and entrepreneurs that are in the space of large, deep tech, life science, material science companies, when you look at it from our Caucasian parts, white parts, Caucasian and whites, in comparison to Black and African Americans or Africans, you look at the numbers and we're so far behind. So, when we talk about fundamentally changing the needle, and this is why entrepreneurship is so important, as we leverage entrepreneurship and we talk about the intersection between entrepreneurship and research, and how do you leverage your academic career, and how do you leverage entrepreneurship to making sure that you're building something that's so inclusive? Because when we look at numbers like this, out of $85 billion in VC funding last year, only 2.2 went to female founders and people of color. Every year, women of color get less than 1% total funding. When I think about that, it's somewhat frustrating and somewhat extremely disturbing. But I think all of you listening today have the fundamental opportunity to change this narrative. Then changing the narrative in such a way. When we talk about some of the forecasting and statistics around Black owned led founders, it starts out with really understanding from an academic institution standpoint, right? When we talk about from some of our nation's top HBCUs and top universities, when we look at the number of startups that are spinning out of universities, not to say that you have to have a university degree or be a part of a university when we're talking about creating new opportunities, but we're talking about having the opportunity to understand research in such a way that we're building new novel solutions. But understanding how do we use leverage university to build out solutions. But when we look at it from STEM focus, is not necessarily an indicator that or of a startup or founder success, because we've got a lot of non-STEM people creating new novel solutions and technology. That goes back to the beginning when I was saying, great if you have that scientific and engineering degree, but you don't have to, you just have to have passion to understand that I care about solving problems for some of our nation's best and brightest when we talk about solving particular problems. Now, when we look in comparison to STEM versus non-STEM to degrees, now this is obviously one particular study and data point, but it's to say that you can create something if you don't have that engineering degree. You can hire the people that you need to help you with to be successful. Just something to think about. So when we talk about entrepreneurship and four types of innovation, I really want to set the tone a little bit again to talk about entrepreneurship and to talk about four types of innovation because they fall into these four actual couple of buckets that when we think about it. So when we think again of what is entrepreneurship, right? So entrepreneurship is the process of designing and launching and running a new business. The people who create these businesses are called entrepreneurs, right? These are people who create new novel solutions. So the question to you today is are you an entrepreneur? And what makes an entrepreneur? And some of the things that I would like to kind of highlight really quick is something that the World Economic Forum, in a recent study, couple of years old study, and they actually kind of re-updated it again this year, when they talked about what are some of the top skills needed to be creative and innovative or employers are looking for. And if you notice that here, you see nothing that has anything to do with math or science. It all understands around having the ability to understand complex problems, critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordinating others, emotional intelligence, decision making and judgment and service orientation, cognitive flexibility, all of these things which are crucial when we talk about the creative and innovative part of being able to build and solve a couple of things, right? But entrepreneurship does have some attributes: passionate, motivated, optimistic, future oriented, persuasive, flexible, resourceful, adventurous, decisive. It's important to have these skills, right? Because when we talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of entrepreneurship, there are some advantages and disadvantages, right? Originality, independence, unlimited earning potential, but some disadvantages: money pressure, long work hours, mistakes are magnified, decisions are often made alone. But when we talk about entrepreneurship and we couple that along innovation, you really get an opportunity to really understand the importance of how do you take your passion and desire to frame it into this thing we call innovation, or what is innovation? Innovation is a new idea, creative thoughts, new imaginations in form of devices or of methods of innovation is often viewed as an application of better solutions to meet new requirements or unarticulated needs when we think about that. Now, here's something that I think when I break up four innovations or four types of innovations, here's what I see as innovations as we're getting close to a close here. When I think of four types of innovations, it really falls into these four buckets. And when you're creating and building or designing things, understand that your innovation will fall into these four actual buckets. One will be sustaining, right? When we talk about sustaining, it's actually talking about a generation offering that targets customers with previous generation offerings comparable to competitive offerings, right? When we talk about develop objectives of sustaining, right, it's sustain existing business models and meet the needs of most demanding customers who are willing to pay at a premium. So we're talking about something that maybe already physically exists, and you're kind of innovating around that place of sustaining. Or we may be talking about new market is the second one, right? When we talk about a derivative of an existing offering that has been tailored to use in a new application for a new customer segment, the developmental objectives here is to extend an existing line of business into new markets that previously were not targeted. So we're talking about penetrating, taking new technology, but moving in and pushing towards a new market there. Then we talk about integrative. Well, the descriptive aspect of this is a first generation offering that targets customers who have multiple jobs to be done. The developmental objective here is to create a new line of business that targets premium customers by performing multiple jobs, as well as other or better than dedicated solutions, get to mass market by developing subsequent generation offerings down as quickly as possible. And then finally, here is disruptive. And I think most of you, when we talk about the magical aspect of technology, we talk about it from here, from this perspective, understanding the disruptive nature of technology. We talk about a first generation offering that targets overserved customers who don't need all of the performance of existing solutions. The development objective of creating is a new line of business that targets overshot customers with a simple offering that does one job well at a lower cost. So we're talking about disruptive and displacing something. Because when we talk about the life cycle of innovation, it looks a little something like this, right? You start out with understanding who the customer is. You start out as this entrepreneur, you figure out what you're trying to solve, and you move through a pathway of creating and starting and launching a new business where you're running these experiments to making sure that the problem that you're trying to create and the problem that you're actually trying to solve actually does exist, right? So when we talk about starting and launching a business, we would love it to be this great straight line that goes from starting out, start point to funding and it being successful, but it just doesn't happen that way, right? No straight line. It's perfect. There's lots of customer discovery, lots of testing, lots of validation. Being an entrepreneur requires understanding and discipline and education. When we talk about leveraging at the intersection of entrepreneurship and research or leveraging our academic career to build out new things, it starts with really having a strong entrepreneurial support system. And that entrepreneur support system may look a little something like this, right? It may look about having some mentors, advisors, professional services, incubators, or accelerators in your area, having a strong network of entrepreneurial peers, entrepreneurship specific training where you're getting yourself trained to understand one thing, to understand the academic aspect of things, but how do I be an entrepreneur in that? And what does that look like? And sometimes your universities can be major catalysts for that. They can help promote a culture of respect for entrepreneurship. Major universities play a key role in ideal formation for new companies. Major universities play a key role in providing graduates to new companies. So you have the opportunity to not just disrupt where you are, but to create something new, right? And then the cultural support of that, right? Having someone that has tolerance of risk and failure and preference of self-employment, successful stories, role models, research culture, positive image of entrepreneurship, getting with people who look like you, that who are successful in this entrepreneurship, celebration of entrepreneurship, celebrate those who win in this place. I'm really talking about having an entrepreneurial spirit or adapt, the ability to adapt to new environments. And not only adapt to new environments, I think there are three fundamental words that I want to encourage you to as I get close to a close here, just want you to really think about and from this perspective. And when I say understanding and have an entrepreneurial environment, it really takes these three things to really think through. One, being able to sense your current state, your current environment, sensing where things are working, where things are not. Where are you happy? Where are you not happy? Where are you excited about things? What do you want to be able to change? being able to have the ability to discern that, to sense that environment, and then have the courage to begin the process to shaping a new environment, shaping and molding where you are to where you want to be, and moving yourself forward out of kind of the where you are to moving yourself to where you actually want to be. Because when we talk about shifting your environment, it's going to require a whole new mindset. It's going to require finding that entrepreneurial spirit to have the ability to adapt, the ability to adapt as you build and move into a new market, as your ability to move in to creating new tools and solutions to innovate and disrupts current markets or current status quo. And for all you researchers here who are looking to move or understand the pathways of researchers and understanding the pathways of moving technologies from market to commercialization, there's a couple of pathways. I won't go through each individual box, but as you're thinking about, as I talked about the topic of intersection between research and entrepreneurship, it's important as well as that you understand and sensing and shaping and shifting your environment from a researcher perspective, from an academic perspective, because you are a fuel and a catalyst as well, just as the entrepreneur or the undergraduate or the graduate student, thinking about how can entrepreneurship really transform my economic status, my social status, my financial status, my health of my family, my ecosystem, my country, my town. This is kind of where it is, right? From you researchers, you have a pathway as well. I won't go through this, but it's really discovering and understanding your vision. This is kind of what we do a little bit here at Venture Lab, where we walk them through these processes of understanding where their technology is, starting out with the discovery and market recognition, and walking through pathways of just really understanding where can the technology create and implement and disrupt, and then saying how do we move through a process of developing that and patenting that and making sure that your scientific discoveries actually make sense, and then moving through a pathway of how do we begin the process of developing this and translating this technology into a place where it can be successful, to where you can be, where you can launch a successful business, which takes time. But there's a thing that I want to stop as we come literally almost to a close here, that I want to caution you of something. When you think about entrepreneurship and you think about solving large, small, and large scale societal problems, there's this thing called pastel, things that I want you to understand. And I'll walk through these really, really quick because they're so crucial that everyone globally needs to think about these things when we talk about starting and building and creating entrepreneurship. The first is really understanding one, understanding the political environment and the landscape and where you are, understanding where the breaks, the challenges, and the limitations are. How do you begin the process of solving those things? And where does your technology fit and sit at the intersection of that? Then understanding the economic aspect of where you are, your country, your city, your state, where your technology can impact or disrupt. Where are you going to be that creator that challenges the economic status quo and build something that's grateful and something that makes sense? And then understanding the social aspect of it. Where do you at the intersection making sure that you're providing technologies or new novel solutions or drugs or vaccines or whatever it is that you fundamentally believe that you're going to create and build that's going to solve problems at mass scale by considering the social aspect of it, then understanding the technological aspect of it. What needs to go in place to make sure that you're building and designing and creating the right things that will fundamentally be disruptive? By considering also the environmental aspect, how will you fundamentally impact the environment where you are? Will you change it? All of these things are crucial when we're talking about building any new technology or we're talking about building or solving something. But then also understand the legal implications behind your technology as well too. Understanding the legal implications of what you're creating, what you're building, as well, to make sure that you understand and that you covered it from that perspective. I just want to say I greatly appreciate the opportunity to serve you all this morning, to talk about entrepreneurship, to give you a quick glance and overscape of just really talking about why it's important that the world needs more scientists more than ever before, why all of you need to be really good innovators, and why all of you need to really understand and have an innovation and discipline mindset, because science fiction has literally become science fact. But there's a lot of work that has to be done when we talk about making this a lifestyle and fundamentally changing the landscape of your local ecosystem, having the entrepreneurial mindset and the spirit to adapt to new solutions, and then sensing and shaping and shifting your environment as you learn how to be an entrepreneur. And I just want to say thank you so much. My name is Nakia Melecio, and it has been an absolute pleasure to serve you all this morning, to just share a little bit about myself, a little bit about my job, a little bit about entrepreneurship and innovation, these things that I'm extremely passionate about. Thank you so much. And I appreciate the opportunity to serve you all this morning.